Hello, it is 7 a.m. I don't know why me and Pippet decided to do this at 7 in the morning. But that Zelda fic that we talked about, that was like our claim to fame when we were 13, or like 12/13. Um, what was I saying? We decided to do a dramatic audiobook reading of it. So you guys have another format to um absorb it in. Anyway, so let's get started. There's 9 chapters. Maybe a 10th. There's some bonus content. So let's start at chapter 1, obviously. Okay. For those just reading, be warned, the first couple of chapters are awful, and I haven't had time to fix them. Also, the story may never be completed, so don't get your hopes up. Good start. I hope you enjoy the reading anyways. The sun was just peeking its head over the horizon in the vast town of Hyrule. As the temperature, as the sun rose, so did the temperature. Through the fields rode a young hero on his horse, one commonly known as Link. He rode past the trees into the valley, towards the castle in which Princess Zelda lives. He hadn't seen her in a while, not since about 2 weeks before, when they were having a royal feast for the people in the castle, and he was somehow invited. Link tugged back on the ropes connected to Epona's headpiece, causing her to stop. He hopped off his horse and headed into the castle. As he reached the river surrounding the building, the castle door flew open and Zelda stood at the doorway. "Hi, Link," she called out, waving a hand in the air. Waving an hand. Link smiled and ran up to her. Once he got close to her, he held out a present in his hand. "Happy birthday." Zelda smiled and took the present from Link's hand. She began tearing the wrapping around it. Eventually, all that remained was a blue box. She opened it up and saw a bracelet, a beautiful silver one with a Triforce on it and a little rectangle plate that ended the chain with the words to the Ballad of the Goddess engraved on it. Her cheeks flushed bright pink, and she threw her arms around Link. "Thank you!" She released her grip on Link and examined the bracelet again. "I love it." "I knew you would," Link grinned. "So, did you want to go walk by... or did you go walk in the forest?" Zelda nodded. "Sure, but why?" Link merely shrugged. "Why not? Besides, we haven't spent much time together lately." "Yeah, alright, let's go." She smiled. Link took her hand and together they ran off into the forest, not stopping until they got a few yards in. The dark green wood was anything but inviting normally. Was the anything but inviting normally? Wow, there's a lot of screw-ups in this. But at this time, it was quite nice. Rays of sunshine shone through the gaps in the tall trees' leaves and fell to the light plush grass, which was still damp from the heavy rainfall that took place the night before. "How's Hyrule been doing?" Link asked when they were walking a while. Mostly, it was just to try and start a conversation of some sort. "Good. Recently we've seen a few bokoblins roaming near the castle at night, but nothing really big to worry about," Zelda replied. Link nodded. He had hoped it was just a few lost bokoblins, and not the start of something horrible. "So, did you want to go sit down for a while?" Zelda asked, pointed to a big rock a few feet away. "Oh, sure," Link replied. "I should get going soon, though. I haven't informed anyone in the castle about this, and they might be worried about me," Zelda said, and then sat down on a rock in the least dirtiest spot, making sure her dress remained clean. Link nodded and plopped down at the top, not even worrying about such a thing. It remained quiet for a while until Zelda's voice broke the silence. "Link, what is it like, being a normal person? Not having a kingdom to worry about, not being looked up to because you're just a princess?" Link thought about it a while. He leaned back into the stone, stretching at his legs. "Well, I can't really answer that. I may not have as much as an entire kingdom to worry about, but I have plenty of other things." Zelda felt her face get hot with embarrassment. She immediately regretted the question. Her troubles were nothing compared to this. He had more than Hyrule to worry about. After all, he had saved this town alone once before. But she had to admit, he did take it well, being the hero chosen from the goddess and all. "Yeah, shall we get back to the castle then?" "Oh, yeah, should we get back to the castle then?" Zelda said, trying to change the subject. "If you'd like," he said, and stood off the rock. He really wished she could have stayed longer, but he didn't say so. He knew that she really had to go back. As he was walking towards her, a loud crash could be heard deeper in the forest. What was that? Zelda asked. I don't know. Link looked around. Let's just keep going. Zelda nodded and proceeded walking, ignoring the few crunches of the leaves that followed the crash. After a while, they made their way to the edge of the forest, leaving behind the trees and rocks and the low brush, and exchanging it for bright, open fields and rivers. They were coming upon the trails of the castle. They heard the crash again, but it was louder. Frightened, Zelda huddled closer to Link. Alright, what is making that crash sound? Link said and looked around. Link. Zelda pointed to a huge bokoblin in the distance. Link ready to sword for attack. The giant bokoblin's gaze met Link's, and it charged after him. He began throwing huge blades, but Link managed to dodge around them. As Link's sword was about to collide with the beast's arm, a blade swiped over his head, cutting a piece of his dark blonde hair in contact. The bokoblin cried out a loud, victorious roar, and ran away before any true damage was done. Confused, Link put his sword back in its sheath. Link, Zelda stuttered. Link turned around to her. His mouth had dropped wide open at the sight of one of the huge blades in Zelda's head. Holy shit. As she collapsed to the ground, Link ran over to grab her, but not before a huge Loftwing swooped down in front of him. The Loftwing grabbed Zelda with his talons and lifted her away. No! No! Link yelled, basically to himself. How could he let it take Zelda away? Everything was happening so fast, too fast, like a poorly written fan fiction. Nothing was making any real sense right now, but he knew he had to save her, somehow, some way. Before he would leave, Link decided to tell someone in the castle. He couldn't ever leave them in constant worry about the princess. Yeah, that's gonna make it feel better. And so Link ran through the fields and made his way to the castle. Okay, chapter 2. What? The guard shook his head. No, this isn't good. Thanks for telling us this, Link. We shall head out. Another guard came into the castle from outside, wailing, Bokoblins, Stalfos, Redeads, all attacking Castletown. Quick, we need some backup. All the guards in the room left the castle as if what Link said hadn't mattered to them. Not one, as far as he could see, remained in the room. It was like they instantly forgot there was more than one problem, that the princess wasn't safe and secure in the building. Link just ignored the thought of even trying with them. Obviously, he was the one who had to save Zelda, because he's not like other boys. Whether they knew why she was absent or not, he could bring her back. Luckily, there wasn't something too crazy going on in Hyrule. Nothing that the castle guards couldn't handle, he hoped. Without even preparing much, he darted out the door. His feet carried him as far as the leveled grass field, as far across the level grass field before Hyrule's royal castle. Disregarding any boulder or mound that threatened to twist his ankle. As he was drawing near the Lake Hylia, he came to an abrupt stop, realizing he, in all honesty, wasn't sure where to go. Where would they take her? There was no telling, really. All of this was seeming to be hopeless, until Link had remembered. A few days ago, he had went to Goron City. He'd met with the big Goron atop the dusty, barren, massive? That was Death Mountain, in hopes to get a sword specially crafted by him. After a bit of devastation on seeing he would be waiting for some time, he went into the hollow inside of the mountain to see the city. Gorgo had been there, eager to tell him something he saw. I hear they were everywhere, Goro. Big red bokoblins, all over by Lake Floria and Zoro's domain. But they didn't get far, though. They can't exactly swim, the Goron had said. There was one time I was in Eldin and I had seen one. I followed it for nearly ever, and then it just disappeared right into thin air, as it was walking on a strange circular pattern on the ground. Weird stuff, Goro. Aha, Link thought. He thanked Gorko in his mind for his drive to always observe and get all the details he can for his research. It really came handy now, and he knew where he'd have to go, the Silent Realm. Although Link hated going into the realm, he knew he didn't have much of a choice but to. He sighed, then began on his way to Lanayru, believing the closest interest was there. He started sprinting once again across the field and eventually made his way back to Epona. She had been waiting loyally for his return. He grinned despite the situation. He quickly fed her a carrot, then mounted on her and kicked her at her sides, shouting, Hiya! The horse sped off into the plains. Author's note. Okay, I am changing perspectives. It'll still be from links, but in second person. Also, please excuse the horribly written short chapters. I am rewriting these first two soon and will make it better than the recents. Thanks. Love the confidence there. Okay, let's see what the heck is gonna happen in chapter 4, because I feel like I don't remember from this point on. You quickly make your way towards the exit, quietly but fastly. As you pass the ends of the buildings, a wave of heat rushes past you, blowing strands of your hair to the side. You come upon a vast sea of sand, seemingly endless from the point you are standing. As you take off the mask and put it away, you realize something dreadful. The only thing visible was sand, sand, and even more sand. Actually, now that you had gotten a better look without all that pesky dust flying at your face, you managed to see a couple cacti peek out of the sand, and likely a million miles away, a small volcano peak. Who knows how long you'd have to tread along this intense heat before you got somewhere. Well, this was going to be a great trip. As you continue to walk, you start to regret your decision to go this way. Sure, it made going to Lanaro a lot faster, but was it really worth it? Dust stung as it blew hard against your skin, and the extreme heat made you kind of sweaty. Wow. Worst of it all, you hadn't even gotten any water or anything to replenish yourself. And that poor fairy, you could only imagine that she wasn't enjoying this any more than you were. This dumb sand is the worst, the fairy complained. You glanced over at Navi, unsure if it was really her who had spoke, or if it was Tattle. The yellow fairy flew around the space to your left. You wonder how long she'd been there. Hey, you say, happy to see her. It's been a while. Yeah, it has. I was wondering when you'd be coming back, Tattle says, sounding a bit frustrated. Well, I've been busy. Eyeing the new fairy, Navi questions, Who's this? Tattle, a friend of mine. She helped me when I left Termina. When I left Hyrule. She's from Termina, you explain. Navi continued to flutter along beside you as you walk. Nice to meet you. Yeah. Tattle turns away from Navi and looks at you. Fucking anyway. What were you doing in a place like this? Or what are you doing in a place like this? Hyrule is under attack, and Princess Zelda has been kidnapped. I'm heading to the Spirit Realm now. The nearest entrance was in Lanaro, you say, flying ahead of you. Through the swarms of dust and tumbleweed, you can vaguely make out a stone wall. It isn't close yet, but you quickly decide that you're going to push through and get to there. You never know what's inside, what's waiting inside. Wow, I'm really messing this up. Oh, okay, Tattle says, showing no concern of the land of Hyrule being in danger. She hasn't personally been to the place anyhow. Then she proceeds to engage in a conversation with Navi, which you have no purpose to listen to, so you block it out. Getting closer, the unknown building is about the size of your thumb from the distance. You drag your feet in the deep sand, pushing against the harsh wind. It was picking up and getting stronger. You tried your hardest to keep moving. It wasn't long before you had the effect of holding you in place, making your walking seem like you're just going on a treadmill, going nowhere. Deciding to wait for it to calm down before continuing, you turn to where the fairies were, only to find them gone. Navi? Tattle? Hey, don't move! Navi says from behind you. Yeah, we're trying to use your big body as a shield against the wind, explains Tattle. We're just fairies, you know. We don't want to get blown away, Navi adds. You nod, ignoring Tattle's comment on your body, and say, Right. You hadn't thought about that. You've never been to this place with a lightweight fairy as those two, in your defense. Well, you think, what should I do now? As you were lost in thought about what would be the most efficient thing to do next, the wind blew hard against you, nearly knocking you backwards. Now would be a great time to have your iron boots. Unfortunately, you had left them behind. Well, maybe not. You pull off a small sack you normally kept your things in and rummage through it. Gerudo mask, goddess harp, and a few carrots for Epona. No boots, nothing useful at all. The wind kept blowing, thrusting armies of sand grains into your skin, and the heat was only getting worse. There wasn't anything to do at this point. You cry out in frustration, clenching your fists tightly together. Hey, I think the wind is calming down, Navi points out. You start to notice that as well. You release the tension in your hands, feeling somewhat relieved. This is your chance to go before it started up again. You take a deep breath and say, All right, let's go. You take off running as far as your feet can take you. The fairies will be able to keep up with these now that the wind is gone, and you know that all too well. Almost there, almost there. About 20 meters away from the shack, the wind comes back once more. You can make it, you're certain. Before it gets too rough, you sprint towards it, leaning forward now to help against the air's force. You got this, you're so close. You extend your hand and grab the doorknob on the wooden door on the buildings inside just before your feet slip out from beneath you. Gah! You gasp as you fall backwards. Hey! Navi exclaims. Careful, Link! Watch where you're falling! Almost crushed us! Tattle scolds. You sit upward and rub your eye. A lot of sand was blowing around now, and your eyes were getting irritated. Sorry. You crawl over to the door and reach up to grab the door handle and pull yourself to your feet. Inside the abandoned building was a cow. Just a cow chewing on hay. Nothing else. How worthless. Moo, the cow goes. I do remember that part. Ugh, what a waste, Tattle says, disappointed. You take a long look around the room. Dusty dirt floor, a pale yellow and tan rock walls. A cobweb hung in the back corner, signifying that it hasn't been used in a while. There hung a lit torch that denied that fact, though. Other than that, there are some scribbles of Hylian words somewhat hidden behind the cow. Whoever wrote it had awful handwriting. Because it was almost impossible to read, it mostly just seemed like a bunch of chicken scratch. Nothing important, probably. Well, you say, may as well go then. The fairies nod and you agree to head out back to the horrible sand terrain. You brace yourself and take a step outside. Something then whips its hand out and grabs your right leg and tugs hard. You fall to your face, unable to comprehend what was happening, as it pulls you back into the building. Your nails dug into the dirt in an attempt to hold yourself in place, but to no avail. Whatever had a hold of you was too strong, too forceful. Do not fret, young hero, a raspy voice says, a hand reaching in and lightly covering your mouth. You feel weight on your back, but it is hard to tell what it could be. You slowly raise your head up. Who are you? The person's palm jams into the back of your head and forces it to the ground, knocking the wind out of you. A hand clasps down on your neck. You grunt to avoid the sudden pain, then squint to avoid dirt getting your eyes. What the heck? Do not speak, you fool! It demands. I came here to tell you about your little princess. Zelda? You hopefully ask, in case it might be another princess. Yes, it says, and leans forward towards your ear. You feel its cold breath blow on you as it speaks. You ask it speaks. There's no point in going to search for her. There is no saving her anymore. You're too late. No, you deny. You're wrong. I can still... You can't! It shouts. Post a hesitation, it lowers its voice back down to a whisper. Do you really think it's possible to save something that's already dead? Dead. Dead. The word stung like a Deku hornet sting. You swear your heart dropped at the word. You momentarily gave up all hope. You weren't fast enough. You're worthless. If I was the princess, I surely wouldn't want the likes of you to be my knight. No, you're lying. Stop, please. You close your eyes as you pleaded. But it's all true, it proceeds to claim. You've already failed. Bet you wished you would have stopped that Loftwing from getting her in the first place, huh? No, stop, you yell. The voice stops. You no longer feel any pressure on you. Like the mysterious person just disappeared and is nowhere to be found. Link, what has gotten into you? You open your eyes, finding the floor beneath you. You're on your knees, your hands holding your head to the ground with your elbows propping them up. Weren't you just laying on the floor? Suddenly, slowly you look up to the fairies, then finally sit up. Why were you screaming so much? Navi asks. You turn around only to find no one is there with you. You were alone. There was someone else here. They pinned me down, and... What are you talking about? No one was here, Link. You just been screaming to yourself for the past 5 minutes, Tattle says. They didn't see it? You know they were here. They had to have been... They had to. Let's just go, okay? I don't want to be in this place anymore. Okay, fine. Let's try this a second time. Tattle begins in finality. 83 begin to walk out the door again into the bright sandy desert, the place where you're dreading more and more as the minutes drove by. Note. Hiya, sorry this took forever. I've been procrastinating a bit. I feel like I shouldn't have crammed all of this into one chapter. Tell me if you guys think it was a bit rushed, and I can definitely drag it out a bit. Thanks for the readers and voters. You're the reason I keep going. Little tongue face. Alright, now we're gonna spice things up a little and go into Zelda's POV. I'm not gonna read in a girly voice, because that's kind of annoying. You awoke cold and hungry. Goosebumps covered your bare arms and your stomach growled. Opening your eyes, you find yourself in a large room, one that you hadn't recognized. Shouldn't you be in your own bedroom? Your head was pounding, and it seemed as if someone had smashed a hole right through it. Your neck and shoulders were aching as well. Still, you managed to sit upward, rubbing your eye tiredly as you do so. All you could see around you was gray stone walls and the dark, ice-cold floor you lay upon now. You couldn't see much else from this point. Anything farther than 20 feet from you was being swallowed whole by the darkness. You were grateful for the lone torch hung on the wall a short distance to your left that managed to allow you to have sight. Without it, you would be even more confused than you are now. Ugh, could your head feel any worse? What had happened to it? You hardly even remember what all took place today. Was it even today? You think Link came to see you. What after that? You notice a silver bracelet on your left arm as it had shown in the torchlight. Link, he gave you this earlier, didn't he? Right, you had nearly forgotten. He rode up on Epona to see you and gave you you it. It was your birthday too. Then you had left the castle, but you couldn't remember anything after that. You stopped reminiscing as you noticed something. A puddle of liquid lay still in your hand, just about where your head was. You touch your forehead, and, sure enough, it was wet. Just what was the liquid, though? Could be water? Oil, maybe? It was kind of sticky. Girl, how dense. You swipe your fingers over the puddle lightly and lift it out close to the light. The dark liquid on your fingers had a red tint to it. Undeniably, it was blood. You gasp and feel your forehead again. Was the blood really coming from there? What had happened? At the sudden sounds of footsteps, you stop your panicking and sit idly. You're not still panicking? Okay. With each step getting louder, closely, you became slightly more afraid. Well, isn't this a pleasant surprise? Who is this? You nearly stop breathing entirely as you see the white feet appear before you. A hand reaches down under your chin and holds it slightly so you're face to face with the feet's owner. Oh, I don't even know if it's a good voice for him. I'll just do my normal voice. Hello there, darling. Wasn't expecting to see you here, they say. Who are you? You shakily ask. This causes them to laugh, but it wasn't a cheerful laugh. It was the one that made you more anxious than you already were of the pale-skinned male in front of you. He stood up, his hands slipping from under your jaw. Oh dear, forgive me. I haven't properly introduced myself. He clears his throat and snaps, disappearing in a mess of diamonds. Where did he go, you wonder? The thought of him being beyond your field of vision right now did not go well with you. This guy was nothing but trouble, you could already tell that. A face appears next to yours, coming from behind you. It was uncomfortably close to you, close enough you could feel the breath on your cheek with each word. My name is Girahim, but I prefer you to refer to me as my full title, Lord Girahim. All right, I'll pay you the respects of using your full title as soon as you explain to me what's going on here, you say. He backs away, standing straight and tall. As much as I would love to tell the poor princess why she isn't in her castle, flaunting around with all the knights that cater to her highness's every need, I have no idea. I did say I was surprised by your presence. Did you not hear me? You roll your eyes at his interpretation of you. He obviously was clueless about a lot. So much for getting any information. But now that you're here, might as well make the most of it, huh? Girahim summons a sword. He adds with a somewhat fiendish grin, Get up out of that bloody mess you've made and follow me, your grace. He nudges you with the tip of a sword and you rise immediately. He starts a leisurely gait ahead of you, obviously testing you by offering some trust. Don't break it, and follow him into the darkness. Author's note. Sorry it took forever to update. I have been really unsure of my writing recently, and also a bit of procrastination and busyness was thrown in. I will try to update again soon. Thanks for reading. Okay, we're halfway through with 4 chapters left. Let's go. The sand had long but faded, soft grass and dirt taking its place, the hot, gusty desert left behind. You now focus on your new surroundings. You said, fuck that silent realm. Portal that you were supposed to go to, Elena. Tall, thick, umber-barked trees scattered the area, creating what was known as Farron Woods. Inside of the woods were sparkling blue mushrooms, cheerful animals, and beautiful rivers and falls. It was lively and bright and could make anyone feel happy and comforted if they didn't notice the many monsters lurking inside. Regardless of this, it was a wonderful place and you personally enjoyed coming to it. As soon as you entered, you paused to take it all in. For a moment, you allowed yourself to forget what was going on and why you were here. Then you crossed by some deku shrubs to the river to walk alongside it. You kicked at the dirt underneath you as you proceeded your leisured gait, noticing how it was like a trail swerving throughout the forest. You wondered if someone had made that. Suddenly you yawned, and you became aware of how tired you were. It was quite safe in these woods, in some places. Maybe better than Lanayru, anyhow. Maybe I could find somewhere to stay for the night, you thought, taking a quick gaze around the area. You couldn't ignore your predicament for long. Soon your thoughts were flooded with today's memories as you follow along the riverside, much to the point where you couldn't focus on your surroundings. Do you really think it's possible to save something that's already dead? The 12 words haunted you. I count them. What if the old hag was right? Zelda could be anywhere right now, collapsed in a bloody puddle on the ground. The people of Castletown could be completely on the verge of being annihilated by the goblins, or the Gerudo. Certainly, if they saw a Hylian male in their territory, they would go and do something about it. Who knows? That something could be to attack them. What else would it be? All of these ideas messed with your head bad and gave you a great feeling of despair. Hey, look up there, Link! Navi says, interrupting your deep, pessimistic thinking. She points towards a spot beside a pool of water connected to the river. It was a slab of stone, partially concealed by a huge fallen tree. That trunk has withered away over time and was now hollow. A fairly good place to stay, actually. Should we rest up there? You nod and quickly head over to it. After setting down your sword, shield, and other things onto the rock, you thank Navi for pointing this out and say it was like she read your mind on wanting to rest up soon. The fairies situate themselves in the tree as you sit down on the edge of the river. Watching the river flow, you realize this water you could bathe in. The current would take away any dirt on you and leave you clean, leave clean water running in its place. So, noticing how dirty you were, you removed your sheath, belt, and hat. Then you took off your shoes and waded into the water. Water rushed past your body, cleansing your sand-caked clothing. After your tunic was cleaned, you stripped it and laid it on the grass to wash your skin. Bracing yourself, you tilt your head back into the water, the grit and dust in your hair and body getting brushed away with the current. It was a bit too cold for your liking, but you were at least clean now. Finally, you got out and grabbed your tunic to put it on. It was still damp, unfortunately, so for the rest of the night, you'd have to deal with being wet and uncomfortable. Resiliently, you lay down on your back on the rocks, staring up at the sky. The river's trickle and the soft sounds of the forest life was truly calming. Everything was suddenly so peaceful, and as the fairies lay asleep on the tree branch, the sky shone with 1,000 stars. You begin thinking, maybe everything will be alright. Your mind is just telling you things are gonna be bad, but they probably aren't as much as you think. Everything will be alright as you make it happen. As long as you make it happen. Then you and Zelda can enjoy a night like this together. With the dark cloud that hovered over you gone, you allowed yourself to relax for this short while. Soon you drifted off to sleep. Author's note: I cut the chapter short because of it getting erased before and I was hurrying to finish it, just FYI. I'll work on updating again soon. Thank you guys for being patient and stuffs. Okay, chapter 7. Author's note: got a couple things. First, in case you didn't know, each chapter is in Link's POV unless stated otherwise. Also, I don't know if my story is seeming to drag on or not, but I'm working on getting it kicking. Final thing, don't bother to try to figure out what game this is set in. I'm combining locations from various Zelda games because I don't care. P.S. This took so long because Wattpad kept leading my work. I remember that being a thing. I lost so much freaking writing. Also, procrastination lended a helping hand. Sorry for the delay. I'm sleepy. The sun arose, birds chirping along with the joy of the dawn returning. Letting light into the treetops, the air warmed up throughout the night, leaving you very comfortable in your now dry clothes. The sounds of the forest, sounds of the animals awakening, rustling about the forest, and the peaceful atmosphere relaxed you. You almost didn't want to ever get up. Hey! Navi said, smacking against your head. We have to get up, Link. Tattle found something. You groaned, covering your face. Someone always had to wake you up, as you were not much of a morning person. Right now, though, you almost contemplated ignoring it until she stopped. but you remembered the important matter on hand, and that finally roused you. With a yawn, you ask, "What did she find?" "We aren't sure, but it's super strange. Come on, get up." Navi persisted. She began to fly off, so you have to rush to get to your feet. After following the fairy for some time, you come upon a clearing in the woods. In its center was a big grassless circle. You stare at it for a moment, examining the area from where you stood. Then you tilted your head in confusion. Dirt? Why do they think this is so strange? Surely they've seen it before. Look closer, Link. You're the center, Navi instructs. You do so, stepping carefully from the outer edge into the middle. Very light blue-green patterns circulated around a thin but wide hole. Thin but wide hole in the ground. They stretched out from the center to a fourth of the way out. It seemed familiar. Right, this is Farron Woods, you say suddenly in surprise, looking back at the two. You didn't really expect them to know, as they haven't been here before, but Tattle nods. Yeah, I think so. Why does that matter? She questions. You can't help but grin. The Farron province was a lot closer than you thought. Thanks to them for finding this out and reminding you of the closer entrance. You were saved from the harsh trek through Lanaru. Did you not? Okay. I guess that's a different part. I guess I separated Gerudo Valley and Lanaru. Okay. We've just found an entrance to the Silence Realm, you tell them. Tattle doesn't understand until Navi explains. Then both of them began bouncing around excitedly. Yay, we found it! Now we're going through deserts! Now we're having soar wings! They celebrated together. You laugh softly at them getting so thrilled over this. After a short time, you have to tell them to calm down a little. Hee hee, sorry, Link. She apologizes, out of breath. You let out another short laugh. It's fine, I'm happy too. Should I go there now? You two will have to stay. The furries look at each other and nod. We'll keep each other company. You be careful in there. Don't do anything stupid, okay? I love their friendship. Tattle says, floating over to Navi. It was strange. You'd never imagine them being friends in a lifetime. Nodding, you look back down at the hole you've made long before, gripping your sword tightly. Hopefully the goddess left the portal open. Your sword slams to the ground, and your body immediately separates into a mess of blue-green color. Everything goes blurry. Soon you're in the realm and back intact. Your vision is clear. All around, the forest is in shades of blue and white. The water seemed chromic, and everything had an almost icy look to it, yet it glowed with life. This is one of the things you loved about the Silent Realm. Then you see the Guardians. You swear under your breath, wondering what they were still doing here. You did not want to put up with those freaky things again. But you still went on, no matter how much it scares you. Immediately, the guardians surrounding the area come to life, or possibly they are never truly awake. What? Never truly asleep, I think is what I meant to say. Just waylaying their next victim. Their eyes become alert, their hands gripping their metal weapons tightly. All at once, they face you. Nearly a dozen glowing red eyes pierce into you, and you run. It's all right, you have to remind yourself. I'll just find a tear and keep going safely. You start to calm at the reassurance and look around yourself. Peering through thick woods, you search hard for any luminescent orb. There is none. A switch flipped in your head, and your calamity turns into fright. That's right. This isn't the goddess's trial anymore. This is the true Silent Realm. No tears would be found here. Looking over your shoulder, you notice two guardians lost and confused. They're having trouble locating their way through the trees. Oh, you realize, they cannot go through things anymore either. This is oddly convenient. but it did make sense. Still, you dart through the forest to the temple. Skyview. Surely you would get some kind of protection there until you could think up a plan. Heading up the stairs, you spot a third distant guardian. You'd have at least a few moments of safety. In the temple, running over the stone floors, you nearly trampled over the many glittering aqua mushrooms. Were there this many before? Other than that, however, the temple seemed fairly the same. It was the exact whitish blue color as everything else in the Silent Realm anyway. You cautiously make your way to the center room, walking now. Panting, you examine the walls ahead of you, just in the middle of the large rounded space. Quite odd placing, you think, but you weren't one to judge others' decisions. Usually this is the place where the Staldros roam and many geese flew around. Yet there was nothing here this time. No movements, no sounds, just eerie silence filling the cool air. You keep moving, watching all around yourself. The soft clap of your ass cheeks. The soft clap of your own shoes. The breath escaping your lips was the only thing to be heard. Eventually, you get to the next room, having seen nothing in the other. It was a small, it was small and in the dark, with the exception of a torch. The room was empty, other than a rope tied to a post and an open chest. What held that, you wonder? Suddenly, your footsteps clap turned into a splash, and you expect it to have been water. There was a lot of it around here anyway. The tiny room was likely to have gotten flooded as well. Then you notice it red. You do a double take, unbelieving. Your eyes weren't deceiving you. You are standing in a puddle of blood. P.S. I haven't edited this well, so I will change things later if I feel like it is necessary. I'll also be rewriting most of the first few chapters, but nothing important in the story will be changed. Just a heads up, it'll be a while. Also, finally changed to a temporary title. Okay. Okay, chapter 8. You stare hard at the floor beneath you, kneeling down to the puddle. Carefully, you poke it with the back of your finger. It was growing cold, but the warmth still lingers. It had to have been fresh from only hours ago, you assume. It was horrifying to think of what could have happened in this room just before you came. But who was it? Who had been here, you wonder, rising? Could they be alive around here, waiting for someone to help them? Could they possibly be dead, and you were too late? Surely not. You hope not. Your feet carry you to a nearby door, just in the opposite wall. It seemed to be new, or at least you hadn't noticed it before. It was a pale, dirty cyan, with traces of dirt and moss around its edges. You stop before it, hesitating, going in. Suddenly, the door opens a crack by itself, beckoning you to come forth. You reluctantly answer its call and hold your hands out, pushing the heavy door open just wide enough for you to slip in. Just as you enter, it shuts behind you, and the handle twists into a lock. You draw your breath in sharply, having to bite the side of your lip hard to keep from uttering a word or a swear. With a quick look around the room, you realized you didn't recognize it at all. That was the strange part. You were certain you had seen this whole temple before, inside and out. Apparently that wasn't so, or you considered this room couldn't truly be here at all. You decided to search it fully. The whole room was dim and especially dank, yet there was something that made it less comfortable than it should have been. Less uncomfortable than it should have been. You couldn't point your finger on what it was for the life of you. With an inhale, you noticed the area smelled like a rather pleasant petrichor and a slight scintilla of blood. I had definitely been using those Tumblr, here's some fancy words you can put into your writing posts. Along the outer walls, water ran down the sides, coming from a source unknown to you. The falls glowed softly to where you could just barely make it out, seeming almost as if it were chrome drops streaming down in a downward fall. See, I'm having trouble reading because none of this. Why did I freaking write it like this? No one talks like this. You remember that it is how water normally looks in this realm. Other than the outside, the place wasn't exactly beautiful or calming. Unrhythmic drips of liquid and distant scratches and creaks filled your ears past the soft splashing of the falls. There was hardly any light in the room at all, but you could vaguely see two walls further down in the room, dividing the room into thirds and creating forked corridors. You feel an urge pulling at your feet forward to these three thresholds. What made you feel it is necessary to check this all out, you were unsure. Your hand wraps around the torch and hung on the wall before the entrance to the left side hall. Pulling yourself together, you remove it from its holder and head down the steps. You take advantage of your new light, holding it at all times above your head and down by your feet to examine everything you can. More often than not, you'd see moss in the crevices of the steps and find water leaking from the ceiling. That was all you saw. There had been nothing more down this corridor than a dead end, and you end up having to go all the way back to get to another. The trek up the long ascending steps on the right side hall had been more fruitful. After a while, the stairs stopped and the floors were continuously level. You were finding yourself to be more interested in what was above you than below, as the ceiling and walls had intricate carvings on their surface. Whoa, Tears of the Kingdom prophecy. There was pictures of many different things, and you couldn't make sense of them. There was also words written in what looked like ancient Hylian, but again, you couldn't decipher them since they weren't reading quite right. It was truly surprising when something glimmering before your feet caught your eye. More blood. Holding the torch behind you, you see a long trail of drops and drizzles along the floor. That person from before, had they come up here? Struck back into the reality of the situation, or you forgot your amazement and curiosity of the carvings. That would have to be saved for later. Across the halls you walk, up a couple of more flights of stairs. Stairs. And down another twisty corridor. This place is so strange to you and seemingly endless, but you focus on the strong feelings you had in your gut that it was important to follow this and did as it told you, until you come upon another door finally. With the push of the bulky stone door, you see the outside of the temple. You knew we're at the back of it. There was a huge spring of the cool stream of water emanating from the fall, just where a few rose-colored fairies, now in the icy realm, fluttered about. Trees bearing huge, ripe fruits of what was normally a soft yellow color were planted on the ground. In the center was the path of stones leading to the small shrine for the goddess Hylia. The sun shined down brightly, nearly blinding you as you step out from the darkness of the temple. How had you gotten here? through the through the temple. You cautiously step out into the open, walking through the shallow water. The blood trail had stopped just before the spring began, a good-sized puddle of red mixing with the still shore. You bend down to it, coming to the conclusion that this is a waste of time mostly. Whoever, whatever, had been here had cleaned themselves off and then left without a trace. There was no way you'd find the thing out. You sigh. Suddenly, a distant shrilling scream rings into your ear. You'd only just spun yourself around to run back whenever you spot a figure standing behind just a few paces behind yourself. Well, well, seems the hero finally decided to make an appearance. Author's note. Wow, I feel like I'm going nowhere with the story. Trust me, I have plans. This chapter is short, and I know, and not a very interesting one. But believe me, by the next one, I will have finally gotten it kicking. Just a warning, though, it may be a while, and as I am currently working on a much harder to write story as well, and don't have lots of creativity flowing as of recent. Thanks to those of you still reading regardless. Okay, so the last author's note from like chapter 3 or so, that was just a joke. Now we're really getting into the good stuff. Okay, chapter 9. With a soft thud, you find yourself shoved up against the side of a loft wing, causing the bird to give a caw in protest. This is Zelda's POV, by the way. Gentle words with a harsh edge to them order you from behind. Up. You do as you're told, throwing your leg around the loft wing's back and sitting. Keeping your face forward and straightening your back, Girahim appears at your side, climbing on roughly just before you. The loft wing squawks with discomfort, but Girahim doesn't seem to take notice as you and tells her to fly up. Your hand carefully strokes the golden feathers as you begin to ascend into the clouds, feeling pity. You make a mental note to save the poor loftwing once you're able to free your own self from Girahim and whoever he was bringing you to. Are you not going to tell me where you're going or not? You risk asking. You were dying to know, and you had to figure out as much as you could. There was no reason anyone would be capturing you, at this time, to your knowledge. That was a mystery only you yourself could solve. So for the better of things, it was not a choice to not pry. Oh dear, forgive me for not telling you earlier, your grace, Girahim spoke, but there was no true sincerity in his voice. How rude of me. We're headed northward to Lanaroo. Well, it would have been nice if Link was also going there. And for what exactly? You did say you had no idea who took me or why. Girahim glanced over his shoulder at you, making a face of distrust and slight annoyance, but he quickly concealed it with a false smile. That's what I'm going to figure out. I don't want to be kind of me just to leave you there. I don't know how long it will take before whoever wants you to get back. I presume it would be better to, rather, keep you with me. Sweet sugar poured from his lips, but there's no doubt traces of arsenic woven into it. You shiver. The tone of his voice held hidden, deeper feelings and a tension of something, but you know not what. All you knew was that you didn't like it. When will we arrive? You finally asked, after a long pause. By nightfall, he simply answered. It had been mid-morning now. The thought of having to ride with him the whole way was practically unbearable to you. It wasn't like you had much of a say in this. Your feelings would have to be suppressed. Your mind must stay alert to understand what exactly was going on and what may happen next. That, however, could wait until you arrive in Lanaroo. It was silent all the way there. For the most part. Every so often, Girahim would blabber on about something, whether it be some kind of venting or vague explanation to his intentions. The poor idiot couldn't keep things hidden very well. You found out very fairly quickly. No matter what it was he said, you paid close attention. By the end of the long, boring flight, you had a fraction of which you had spent half sleeping. You managed to gather two things: the imprisoned had somehow broken its seal, and Girham did know something about the beasts and creatures beginning to infest Hyrule. What that was and how much of it, you hadn't the slightest clue. Just as you began pondering over your newfound information, you found that you were descending near the Sand Sea, quite hurriedly as the weary Lothring was so anxious to rest on the ground. Out of seemingly nowhere, the once obtrusive what? Okay, that's not finished. Okay, well, okay, so that was chapter 9, right? Okay, oh my gosh. Is that how I left it? I think I had that chapter posted too. I literally didn't even finish it, I posted it. Okay, well. Okay, so for me, that was not a great conclusion. So what I am gonna do is I'm gonna read the part that I was intending to happen at the end. This is the what everything else is building to. This is my end goal, was to get to this part. So we're gonna look at it now, before we finish up here. Um, your feet weightlessly pushed you across the bridge, rushing to get to your lost best friend. Finally, all your efforts had paid off. Through the travels, the battles, the search, you'd been worried so much about her. It seemed like a serendipity to see her again, alive and well. It was truly incredible. Zelda's alluring smile greeted you warmly. Her blonde hair blew gently with the breeze. The skirt of her carnation dress was slightly swept from the ground. You neared the end of the bridge, stepping on the final gray stone before reaching the grass on which she stood. Link! Zelda's dulcet voice called excitedly. It was wonderful hearing her voice again, seeing her here, knowing she was okay. You embrace her as you come to a halt before her. She hugs you back, arms wrapping under yours and hands clinging to your shoulders. Tears formed in the corners of her eyes. Not a word was said, and there was none needing to be. Both of you knew what the other was thinking. You were sure of this. So, for a while, you stand in the midst of a small green plain, clasping each other tightly. Her hand rests upon your shoulder. You hold her, smiling brightly. Was everything finally over? Was everything okay? Could they then save Hyrule? You feel an increasing dampness on your sleeve. Zelda's shoulders shake. No doubt she was crying, and you couldn't blame her. The goddesses knew what she went through these past weeks. It was awful. You were certain of this. You release your grip and pull back to finally speak with her, trying to meet her downward-facing eyes. You would just open your mouth to say something when... Shh! You grunt and stumble backwards. A sharp pain shot through your upper body. Your heart beats fast, out of rhythm with the slow-moving world. Wide-eyed, you convince yourself to look down. A sword stuck through your chest, blood seeping through your tunic. Horrified, breathless, you glance up. The treacherous look on Zelda's face took you aback. Zelda? You ask shakily. Suddenly, all at once, her grin didn't seem beautiful, and her voice wasn't so sweet as she said, "Worthless hero." With a flick of her wrist, she twisted the sword inside of you. A loud groan escaped your lips. The moment she pulled the sword out, you fell to your knees. Clutching your chest, you stared dazedly at the grass as the red dripped onto it. It was like Christmas up in here with all these pretty green colors. Fucking Homestuck. You thought. You still couldn't make any sense of this. Why was this happening? Zelda, your princess and longtime best friend, who you've countlessly traveled far and wide and risked your life to save, suddenly turned against you. She was out for blood, and you were her first victim. Nothing was quite adding up. Bet you thought you've won, huh? That your princess was here, unharmed and safe, now that her precious hero was here? You thought you saved everything? Psst! Zelda spat, looking down at you. You couldn't utter a word, but she already decided your answer for you. Well, get the hell over yourself. I really thought it was cool swearing in this, by the way. You've done nothing but destroy this damned town more than it already was. She scoffs. What a sad excuse for a hero. You lay shaking on the ground, unable to say anything. Your once green tunic now took on a crimson color. There was no telling how much blood you were losing. All you knew is that it was going out fast. Why are you doing this? You managed to ask with a stutter. She leans down to face you eye to eye. Because I care for the well-being of my town and my people. I know what's good of them. I do have the Triforce of Wisdom now, don't I? And you are not going to cut it as their hero, let alone mine. You shake your head, then lock onto her gaze. Now is not the time to try to get your old Zelda back. The only option you had was to deal with a new one, and there was no way you were going to let her see you as a weak fool before she kills you off. Even if you had probably already lost close to a liter of blood from her attacks, you had no fear. You had no fear. Fuck. You could overcome this. No, you're wrong. The only thing that's not gonna cut it is you as their leader. Excuse me? she, she raised an eyebrow, tightening her grip on the sword. You heard me. No one is gonna want a psychotic, murderous princess. I don't like that I said that. I'm sorry, on behalf of past me. To rule their town. You stare up at Zelda, daring her to prove you wrong. She glared down at you condescendingly. You were suddenly an impious peasant at the gallows, and she was a watching queen. Any false move, and you'd be hung by your neck. Caution must be taken as you slowly rise above her height level. Now it was you looking down at her. Zelda, you say gruffly, I'm giving you a final chance to come back to me. Please. She shakes her head, gripping the sword she held. Her pupils had vanished, leaving only a blank orb. You feel a pit in your stomach as you realize now what you had to do. Pulling your sword out of its sheath, you focus on her movements. You step a little back from her, cringing at the sharp pain in your torso with every movement. Forget your pain, you tell yourself. You have to get through this. Slowly, you raise your sword out. Zelda raises hers, scowling back at you. You want to try to battle me? She asks. She asks in a sarcastic shock. I was really scared where this is going. Alright then. Dance, Skyboy. Put on a show for me. Furrowing your brows with determination, you come charging at her, swinging with all your might. She counters it, your sword smacking between you with a loud clank. You attempt another strike, but a mere twist of her arm allows her to block it once more. You parry to the side, shakily thrusting your sword out to her with a quick movement. Somehow, almost unbelievably, she dodges herself around it mere moments before it could have made contact. She scoffs, chin raised. It was clear how low she thought of you. It made you weak, thinking how backwards all this was. This treacherous monster wasn't Zelda. Had it ever been? Where was she? Or was she in there, somewhere, and just, simply possessed? You ached to know her fate. Suddenly raged at whoever was toying with you, keeping you off guard by such means. You run fast as Zelda, frustratedly swinging again. This time you manage to hit her, but only before she pulls herself away before any true damage was done. You're pathetic. See what I've told you? It's like you could hardly use a sword, Zelda spits out. Panting, you fall to your knees, clasping... Was this always in second POV? You fall to your knees, clasping around in the gash at your chest. Your body couldn't take anymore. The world was starting to pulsate along with the unrhythmic beating of your heart. What was happening? Why couldn't you hit her? Nothing was seeming real or right. Even now, you couldn't think straight. Getting tired, boy? Zelda said, stabbing the tip of her sword through the dirt. It stayed erect, and she leaned onto it. Or do you still want to... press trying to save nothing? What do you mean? You managed to choke out. Zelda gives a smirk. I just wished you could see how my master remade Hyrule and its citizens. It's absolutely fantastic. But you'd cry like a baby. You held your breath. Did she mean... No, she couldn't have. But you knew she did all the same. There were no more citizens of the town you loved. They had killed them all, or worse, they'd altered them under their power. You were in too much pain to move now. You'd worn yourself out entirely. There was no way to bring back the highlands of Hyrule, or that the Zelda you know and love would return, and no way you could get back up and try. Right then, every little piece of faith you held so dearly seemed to drop from your arms and clash into the ground, its shards like scattering glass across the floor. Each step further now would result in a cut by the remains of the broken hope. There was nothing left to fight for now. Are you done yet? It seems your show's come to an end, I would say. You were staring at the grass, struggling to keep your breath, but the sound of footsteps indicate that Zelda was near. You hear her mock in your ear. Guess you weren't strong enough, hero. You weren't sure how long you were left there, bleeding, straining to get air. It was silent, unusually silent. Had she left? Did she spare you? Suddenly, quicker than you could react, a sharp tip of the sword dug into your back, and you broke out the other side, piercing your heart. With a gasp of final breath, you dropped and everything turned black. This is good, then it wasn't. I think it's okay. Anyway, yeah, that's my story. That's the claim to fame. I think it was only up until I really think I did post chapter 9, I'm not gonna lie. But for the most part, I think my fame started to hit like around like chapter 4. I don't know why. I end up making commissions. Like here's one of them. I'm not gonna read it because it's actually ass. But it was like somebody was like, "Oh, can you write a story of like Zelda marrying Girahim? And then can you write this? Can you write that?" So I did take that into account as I like went further into the story. Um, Looking back, I'm not really sure why. I mean, I guess for my fellow 11, 12, 13 year olds, I guess it was probably pretty good. It's just kind of funny to look back on now being 22.